Clara left me behind on that rainy night, probably assuming I would just show up the next day as if nothing had happened. The problem was, I forgot everything that occurred after I turned 16, and that included her. I eventually made my way back to the small town I remembered from my childhood and opened a flower shop. Sometime later, a reality television show came to film in our quiet town. It was there, under the watchful eyes of cameras and curious passers-by, that a famous celebrity ran toward my little shop with tears in her eyes, completely disregarding her public image. I had been in the hospital for a full week, spending most of that time trying to persuade the doctor that I was perfectly fine. He, however, was stubbornly convinced that I was suffering from amnesia. The thought almost made me laugh. How could a person not know if they had amnesia? I tried to reason with him, explaining that I remembered where I lived and could recall the names of my classmates from elementary, middle, and even high school. How could that possibly be amnesia? I told him I wanted to be discharged, that I was truly okay. When he still seemed unmoved by my logic, I changed my approach and began to plead. "Have a little pity on me," I said. "There's not much money left in my bank account. My phone is broken, and my family must be worried sick." He stared at me silently for a long moment, his expression unreadable, before finally giving a reluctant nod. The moment I stepped outside the hospital doors, I took a deep, deliberate breath of fresh air. I had grown to despise the sterile, disinfectant smell that permeated every corner of the building. The warm sun felt wonderful on my skin, a welcome sensation after being cooped up inside for so long. As I looked around, I realized the surroundings felt somewhat unfamiliar, distant. I spent a good while asking strangers for directions until I finally found a shop where I could buy a new phone. I felt a pang of loss as I held the sleek new device in my hand. It was then I remembered that I had tossed out my old, broken phone. And with it, every single contact number I had saved. With a sigh, I once again had to ask for directions, this time to find a place to get a new SIM card. Just as I was sorting everything out, a massive screen on the side of the International Trade Building lit up, broadcasting an interview with a celebrity. A small crowd had gathered on the sidewalk to watch. As I walked past them, I overheard some enthusiastic fans explaining to an older couple who the woman on the screen was. "She's Clara," they said, their voices filled with excitement. "She's a rising star, incredibly pretty and talented. You should definitely keep an eye on her." My curiosity got the better of me, and I glanced up at the giant screen. The host was smiling warmly at the woman named Clara. "So," the host asked, "a common question from the crowd is whether someone as beautiful as you has had any romances that just weren't meant to be?" The woman was undeniably stunning, with delicate features and a smile that could charm anyone. "Not at the moment, no," she replied smoothly. The man sitting next to her, who had the cheerful vibe of a boy next door, covered his mouth as he chuckled. "I thought you had one," he teased. "Now I'm curious." People in the crowd around me began to whisper about how good the two of them looked together. I blinked, a strange feeling of familiarity washing over me as I looked at her, but I quickly shrugged it off. Celebrities often look familiar, don't they? I turned and continued on my way. Once the interview was over, Clara went backstage. Her gaze swept the area, but when she didn't find the person she was looking for, her expression fell. She turned to her manager and asked, "Where's Leo?" Her manager looked troubled. "I don't know," he replied. "We can't get in touch with him." A flicker of panic crossed Clara's face. "Did something happen to him?" she asked, her mind flashing back to the day she had left me alone at the hotel. Then, she seemed to come to a different conclusion, guessing that I was probably just sulking somewhere. The thought brought a small measure of relief, and she instructed her manager, "Text him. If I don't see him tonight, I don't want to see him ever again." After buying all the necessities and getting my new phone set up, I looked down at my empty hands and wondered what could have happened to me. Maybe I was mugged during a trip or something similar. I bought a plane ticket back to W City and sat in the terminal waiting to board, downloading the essential apps onto my phone. Suddenly, a commotion erupted near the entrance. I turned my head to see what was happening. A large crowd had formed, surrounding something or someone, with phones and cameras all pointed toward the center. It was obvious that someone famous was there. I shook my head, trying to clear it, and the doctor's words echoed in my mind. "You've definitely forgotten something." Forgotten something? What could it be? I felt as though a crucial piece of my memory was missing. I glanced over again at the big star, who was now making her way through the security checkpoint. When she removed her mask and sunglasses, I was sure I had seen her somewhere before. It was that new rising star from the giant screen. A few months later, I found myself lying in a comfortable wicker chair in front of my own flower shop. The noon breeze was warm, and I watched as students with fresh, young faces walked by after being let out of school for the day. When I had first returned to my grandparents' house, the place I remembered so vividly from my childhood, it was completely empty. The only thing left on the walls were 2 portraits of my smiling grandparents. Looking at the small, vacant house, an overwhelming sense of sadness washed over me. It turned out that I had lost all of my memories after the age of 16. My memory had simply stopped during my first year of high school, a time when my grandparents were still alive, still in that house, making my favorite dishes and waiting for me to come home from school. I had forgotten everything that came after. I didn't know where my adult self worked, or if I had gotten married. To be honest, I didn't want to think about it. Something deep inside me insisted that I didn't need to know. I told myself it was okay. After all, no one had come to visit me during my entire week in the hospital. So I decided to open a flower shop in this quiet town. I would sell flowers, listen to people's stories, watch the sunrise and sunset, and see the waves roll in from the nearby ocean. A small television inside the shop was playing the entertainment news. The host was saying, "Top star Clara, in an exclusive interview this morning, cleared up her rumored romance with Mark, the lead actor in the drama Coward. She stated that they are just working partners and hoped everyone would see it rationally." Elsewhere, Clara's manager was scolding her. "Are you crazy?" he said, his voice laced with frustration. Even though the drama had finished airing, she hadn't bothered to coordinate with the other actors' team before publicly shutting down the rumors. He knew it would likely drive their dedicated fan base insane. Clara stared blankly at her phone, rereading the message she had just sent. "Mark and I really misunderstood. We were just collaborating for the show. It's time to come back now. You've been sulking for long enough." It was the first time she had ever lowered her pride for me. Yet a long time had passed, and I hadn't sent a single word in reply. Seeing that she wasn't paying any attention to him, her manager angrily turned off her phone screen. "Listen to me," he said, raising his voice. "If you want to keep your career going, you need to stop doing these weird things. Look at the line of people behind you, just waiting for a chance. If you step down, a newcomer will fill your spot immediately. As for Leo, you better get a grip on your feelings. He might find a different path for himself. You can't let that kid waste his youth just being your dead-end assistant." His words felt like a sharp ache in her chest. "Then why didn't he tell me?" she asked, her voice small. "With the way you've treated him," her manager retorted. "If I were him, I would have left in a huff a long time ago. I wouldn't stick around to say anything." Clara's face went pale. She couldn't believe that I was actually leaving her. I was the one who had always said I would be by her side. From the very beginning, I had liked her so much. How could I just leave without saying a word? She convinced herself that it was because she had left me in the rain that night, and I was still mad. She also thought I had misunderstood her relationship with Mark. She figured that if she just explained everything, I would come back soon. My little flower shop was located in a seaside town, right across from the ocean. I spent my days there, arranging flowers outside the shop, lounging in my wicker chair, and watching young couples stop to buy flowers and take pictures. Lately, I found that I couldn't remember much of anything. One afternoon, a group of elementary school children stopped by. They squatted in front of my shop, their eyes wide with curiosity as they discussed which flower was which. I walked out slowly, fanning myself, and pointed them out. "That one is a daisy," I explained. "That's a blue enchantress, and that's a rose." They looked up at me with awe, clapping their hands and exclaiming, "Big brother, you're so cool for knowing all these flower names." Children have such vivid imaginations. A little girl declared, "When I grow up, I want to open a flower shop just like you." Another said, "I want to be an astronaut." "I want to be a superstar," a third girl announced. "And you can be my assistant," she said, pointing at a boy standing next to her. The boy nodded eagerly. "Yeah," he agreed. "I want to be a superstar's assistant." I watched them with a gentle smile, and then suddenly, a blurred image and a snippet of conversation rushed into my mind. A boy was leaning on his hand, telling a girl, "You'll be a superstar one day, and I'll be your first fan." The girl just looked down at her homework without responding. Instead of getting angry, the boy cheerfully amended his statement. "No, I've decided. I'm going to be a superstar's assistant." Ouch! I clutched my head and stumbled back into the shop to sit down. When I came back to myself, my chest was heaving. Who was that girl from the image in my mind? I eventually found an answer while I was cleaning out the attic. I had intended to move some unfinished dried flowers up there for storage. While I was sorting through some old boxes, I discovered an old, worn-out notebook. A few rays of sunlight streamed through the attic window, illuminating the dust particles dancing in the air. I thought about it and concluded that this book couldn't have been something I wrote before I turned 16. It had to be from the years I couldn't remember. I opened it. Today, I came to A City with the superstar. A City is really big and beautiful. It wasn't a diary, not really. There were no dates on the entries. It must have been something I jotted down whenever the mood struck. I sat down on the dusty attic stairs, leaning against the wall, and continued to read. None of it jogged my memory. I felt like an outsider, peering into the private thoughts of some young man. I turned a page and found an entry that was dated August. "I forgot to bring water for Mark today. That was why she yelled at me, but I'm just her assistant, not Mark's. Is she starting to like Mark too? Who was Mark?" I pressed my lips together. The version of me in this diary seemed incredibly sad. Was she someone I liked? Another entry from August read, "They had a kissing scene today. I know it's part of the job, but I couldn't help feeling sad. Why does that Mark guy keep interrupting at crucial moments? How many times did they have to kiss? I really wanted to swear." Then, one from October. "Today is both Mark's and my birthday, but she chose to celebrate with Mark. That place was so upscale, and she looked so happy. But why is it always me who gets left behind? I don't want to like her anymore." The paper had yellowed with age and was marked with the faint traces of some dried liquid. I gently touched the stain, a stuffy feeling tightening in my chest. I realized that even as an adult, I was never anyone's first choice. Why did Leo have to be so self-effacing? I read on. November. She kissed me. She must like me. She definitely does. I blinked silently and sighed as I went back downstairs. People who aren't loved will often overturn all the bad things someone did to them just for a single taste of sweetness, crafting a self-deluding reality where they are liked in return. After that day's shoot, Clara walked quietly back to her trailer. A director she had worked with before rubbed his chin thoughtfully and asked, "Where's that kid who was always trailing behind you? I haven't seen him since this shoot started." That kid had been memorable to him. He was always smiling, easygoing, and constantly running around the set. Whenever the director got mad, the kid would cheerfully appear and say, "Director, cool off? Have some herbal tea? I brought it from home just for you." But Clara had always been indifferent towards him, treating him coldly despite his warmth. Hearing me mentioned again made Clara's whole body tremble. Her eyes watered as she forced a smile and said, He's been sick lately." The director raised an eyebrow, likely guessing the truth, but didn't press the matter any further. Back in the trailer, Clara sat in a daze. It had been so long, and I still hadn't returned. It was as if I had truly vanished from her life. With a hoarse voice, she called out into the empty trailer, "Leo?" Gone was the me who would immediately pop up with a smile and say, "I'm here! I'm here!" whenever she called. She looked at our old chat history, tears blurring her vision. "Leo, I was wrong. Where did you go?" I continued reading the notebook. December. Lately I think about when we first came to the city. I had money, but no matter what, she wouldn't use it. Back then I stayed with her in a basement apartment. The winters were freezing, but she was good to me. I felt like she liked me too. We sent out resumes and went to auditions for any small role we could get. Then, she skyrocketed to fame from one show, reaching the spot she had always dreamed of. Everything she wanted became suddenly within her reach, and the smiles on her face grew more frequent as the advertisement deals flooded in. But she seemed to drift further and further away from me. Scandals constantly surrounded her, with one name recurring over and over. She never responded to the rumors. Instead, she seemed to indulge in them. She didn't know it, but I could tell. When you're deeply involved in a situation, things can seem confusing, but outsiders can often see things clearly. At that time, wasn't I too caught up in it all? Mindfully aware, yet unable to escape. The sky had darkened outside, and I looked up to see a full moon. Suddenly, I recalled a phrase I once knew. "Is this the same moon I saw as a boy?" Time flies by. Life passes swiftly, and some things become regrets. But whatever you experience in life is driven by your own determination. From that time and place, looking back, we often think that if we had done things differently, the outcomes might have been different. People always assume the path not taken would be lined with flowers, overlooking the mindset they had back then. I walked home under the soft moonlight. The lazy sun shone into the shop that day. Outside, a little kid was running around happily with a pinwheel, his parents following closely behind him, their faces filled with indulgent smiles. Watching them, I couldn't help but smile myself. That was real happiness. These days, memories often drifted back to me. When I was very young, my parents got divorced. Neither of them wanted me. They thought I was a burden. They couldn't give me any love, but they did give me a lot of money. In my dim memories, right after I finished my college entrance exams at 18, I packed a suitcase. I wanted to visit my mom. I wanted to tell her that I had done well on my exams and that I had been taking good care of myself. But when I finally saw her, she was out shopping with a boy about my age. The boy had his arm around her waist, acting cute, and she affectionately tapped his nose, smiling helplessly. I suddenly remembered the impatient and indifferent way she used to look at me. After leaving that building, surrounded by skyscrapers and busy traffic, I wandered aimlessly down the street. That night I took a flight back home. As the memories faded, I picked up a flower and began to trim off the dead leaves. Leo knows how to live well on his own. This world will always have its imperfections. I turned another page in the notebook. February 4th. When I got up this morning, there was a bouquet of roses in the living room. They were bright red, yet they seemed dull. She received them. But they wilted, and she had gotten it wrong. I never gave her roses. That was Mark's thing. July. From ages 17 to 27, I've been there for her, year after year. That's enough. It's time I start living the life I want. I want to open a flower shop, move back to my hometown, tend to the shop, watch the sunrise and sunset, and grow old slowly. The golden sunset cast a soft light across the room, and the sea breeze blew in from the shore, gently flipping the pages of the old notebook. Back then, I had written what was supposed to be a diary, but in truth, it wasn't even dated properly, and there were long gaps between the entries. Staring at the notebook lying quietly on the smooth table, it seemed to be conversing with me across an endless expanse of time. It told me that the person I used to be was lonely back then, with no one to turn to, and this notebook was his only outlet. He was like a caged animal, placing all his hopes and his longing for love onto that one woman. The breeze turned the page to a spot where only a few words were written. I'm leaving her today. The first snow of the year fell in the city. After wrapping up her first scene of the day, Clara turned her gaze toward a snowman in the distance. It had been 4 months since I had left her, and it felt as if I had completely exited her life. She swallowed hard, letting the delicate snowflakes fall onto her gloved hand. She used to think that it was I who couldn't leave her. But now, with a bitter smile, she realized it was she who couldn't leave me. Not far away, Mark approached with something in his hand, smiling brightly. His carefree grin shocked her, as she hadn't seen me smile like that in ages. Suddenly, Mark tripped over a stone and fell, but instead of getting up, he stayed on the ground, knowing she would come to help him, no matter the distance. In that instant, a memory flashed in her mind. Once, during a break in a theater production, Leo was carrying a prop and fell because he wasn't watching his step. At the same time, Mark twisted his ankle on some nearby steps. What did she do then? Her heart clenched painfully, and tears filled her eyes. I was right next to her, yet she hadn't even turned back, rushing instead to help Mark to the hospital. At that moment, she didn't move. She looked up at the falling snowflakes, tears streaming down her face. Mark, seeing that Clara still wasn't coming to help, walked over, annoyed. "Why didn't you come help me?" he demanded. Clara glanced at Mark, and he turned away petulantly. In her memory, Leo never threw fits. He was always thrilled with just one kind word, one piece of candy. Her heart ached for Leo, and she felt like she could have killed herself right then and there. She turned and walked away. What had she really done to Leo all those years? "Clara!" Mark called out angrily as she walked away without a word of concern. Time passed slowly, and then it hit me. There was always a faceless woman in my mind. She wasn't particularly kind, but one day when I was missing my grandparents dearly, she gave me a piece of candy and a hug. The candy was sweet, so sweet it went right to my heart. That embrace was warm enough to ease all the scars she later left behind. I sighed deeply. I knew that kids without shoes had to learn to run quickly, and those who were deprived of love often sought it in the smallest of things. Leo, how pitiful you were. I looked up at the sky, which was darkening and threatening rain. Hurriedly, I began moving the pots of flowers inside. Some unkempt soil on the floor caused me to slip, and I fell flat on my back. The plant I was carrying shattered on the ground. I clutched my bruised tailbone as I scrambled to my feet. Ouch, that hurt. Worse still, many of the flowers were still outside. I frowned and massaged my backside as I went back out to fetch them. I was struggling to lift a heavy bucket of flowers when a woman's joyful, tremulous voice reached me. "Leo, is that you?" Peeking through the flower stems, I saw a crowd of people with cameras at the ready. A beautiful woman was looking at me with delight, though the tall, handsome man standing beside her did not look pleased. I was short on time and couldn't be bothered to chat. "Yeah, sure," I tossed out as I turned away. Under the intense gaze of the crowd and cameras, the top star's eyes watered as she ran towards me, completely forgetting her image and blocking my path. "What do you want?" I thought. "Can't you see I'm busy?" But I put on a smile. "Ma'am, do you want to buy some flowers?" The joy on her face instantly drained away. Staring blankly at me, she opened her mouth to speak. "Leo, are you still mad at me?" I looked her over and remembered seeing her on the big screen that one time, but her words were odd. Since we didn't know each other, why would I be mad at her? Sighing, I replied, "Sorry, you must have the wrong guy. We've never met. And hey, if you're not buying flowers, could you kindly step aside?" "Thanks." She stood there, stunned, as I moved past her. She suddenly seemed to snap out of a trance and said, "Are we moving the flowers? Let me help you." Hearing this, I turned around and saw she was already carrying a bucket in each hand. I just shrugged. I couldn't pass up free help, right? Once we were done, I was about to close up the shop and head home. She looked at me with bright eyes, like a little kid waiting for praise. I glanced at her, then at Mark, who was standing under the eaves, gritting his teeth. "I'll find something for you to eat," I said. I rummaged through a box and actually found 2 drinks. I handed one to Clara with a polite smile. "Thanks. This one is for your boyfriend," I said, gesturing toward Mark. "I'm closing up now. It's going to rain soon, so you two should get going." Clara looked flustered and quickly rebutted. "No, you've got it all wrong. There's nothing between us. We're just here for a show." Mark looked like he was about to start crying, but he just stared at me with resentment. I was speechless. What did I ever do to you? I rolled my eyes inwardly, snatched the drink back from Clara's hand, and said, "I was trying to be nice, but I guess I'll just drink it myself." I ignored them both and started walking off on my own. "Leo!" Clara called after me, trying to explain. "You've misunderstood. He and I are just partners. Did you see the news? I cleared it all up." I poked a straw into the drink and gave her a sideways glance. "I already told you I'm heading home. Stop following me. Don't think that just because you're a celebrity, I won't call you out on your behavior." I added, "Stop following me and causing trouble. Whatever is going on with you two is none of my business." The streets were full of people hurrying home from work, and Clara's face turned pale in the bustling crowd. She grabbed my hand in a panic. "Leo, what's wrong with you? Don't scare me." Oh man, this headache. What was worse was that Mark was still trailing behind them. They were both big stars. Their fans were no joke. I seriously pulled my hand back from her grasp. "I'm telling you again, my name really is Leo, but I'm not the one you know. You're mistaking me for someone else with the same name. Now stop following me, or that guy behind you will get the wrong idea. Goodbye." Just then, rain started to fall like marbles. I used my hand to shield my head, and the drops stung a bit. "What a day," I muttered. "I told you it was going to rain, and you still blocked my way." I quickened my pace, and then I heard Clara shout from behind me, "Leo, watch out!" As soon as she said it, I stepped right into a small pothole I hadn't seen, and went down hard. "Leo!" Clara cried out, running over to see if I was okay. A sharp pain shot through my hand and knee. I was covered in mud and water. I gritted my teeth against the pain, the rain blurring my vision as I struggled to get up. Jinx! Seeing me fall, Clara had let out a cry and started toward me. Her hands were clenched into fists, but by the time she turned, I was already limping away. After I got home, showered, and dried my hair, I saw the diary lying on my desk. Clara and Mark sitting at that very desk. I thought it over. Was this all just a coincidence? It seemed my luck had just run out, and my life was being turned upside down all over again. The next day at 9 in the morning, I stepped out of my house to find Clara standing there in front of my door. She looked exhausted, with dark shadows under her eyes, as if she hadn't slept at all. Seeing me, she rushed up and slapped her own face. "Leo, I'm sorry," she said, her voice trembling. "I didn't know it would turn out like that. If I had known, I never would have done it. I was wrong. Please give me one more chance. Come home with me." I looked at her, feeling absolutely nothing. I didn't know if the old me would have forgiven her, but as I was now, nope. I walked away coldly. "Just stay away from me." Clara looked at me, her expression pleading. "Leo, you've lost your memory. Let's go see a doctor, please. When you remember everything, we can get married." She seemed to be in genuine pain, but I just smiled and asked, "You like me?" She nodded quickly, pulling a bouquet of roses from behind her back. I laughed at the sight of the bright, fresh roses. "Sorry, I don't," I said, sweeping them out of her hands. The petals scattered and danced with the wind. Clara stared at them, motionless, as if all the strength had left her body. "You remember this?" I shot back coldly. "I never liked roses. The one who did was Mark. And you claiming you like me, yet you keep running to him. Are you insulting me or the word like itself?" She shook her head, her eyes tearful. Just then, Mark ran over and shoved me hard. "How dare you treat her like this?" he said angrily. He glared at me before turning to console Clara. Clara stepped aside, avoiding his touch. "Who asked you to come here?" she snapped. Mark looked hurt. "She treats you like that, and I'm looking out for you. Why are you mad at me?" I just kept walking. I couldn't compete with these two drama queens. "Leo, listen to me," Clara pursued, explaining softly. "I don't know how he found us. It wasn't me." I sighed. What part of what I said was unclear? She mumbled, "Leo, you're unwell. When you're better, we'll be better too." I stared blankly at her. "Ever hear this one?" I asked. "From God." Clara seemed eager at my question, shaking her head childishly. "What is it?" "I will heal you, so I hurt you. I love you, so I punish you." "What does that sound like?" she asked eagerly. "Like what?" "Like bullshit," I said flatly. She didn't fight back. She just laughed, ready to accept any insult I threw her way. Acting as if she was quitting showbiz, Clara started following me around. Her manager begged her to come back several times, but she just sat outside my shop saying nothing. Her fans were pleading for her to return online. I hadn't seen Mark since that day. The agent came to see me again, and this time I snapped at him. "Are you crazy? Am I her mom or her dad? Are you kidding me? Get lost!" His face turned beet red. He clearly didn't expect me to react like that. Then he said, "It's been a tough ride for her. Are you really going to watch her fall from grace?" I was arranging flowers at the time, and honestly, he was right. I said casually, "Yeah, I kind of want to see that happen." Later, I ran into Mark. I told him I felt like having some cake. It was a rare request for Clara, who looked at me with bright eyes and said with a smile, "Wait here, I'll be right back." Mark looked at me coldly, saying bitterly, "I really thought you'd die that rainy night. You must be lucky." His words didn't faze me. I just pressed my lips together, staying silent. But he couldn't keep it together. He tossed a check at me. "Here's $1 million. Leave the country, never come back, and stay away from Clara." It was almost funny. Picking up that check felt like something out of a cliché romance novel was happening to me. I looked up at Mark. He stood there with his arms crossed, glaring at me like a spoiled rich kid. Well, he actually was a rich kid. I'd seen him before, a long time ago. It was just after my college entrance exams, with my mom holding a boy's hand. That boy was him. The second time I saw him with the woman he was with was when Clara left me for that birthday party. That day, he was in the spotlight, surrounded by admirers. So radiant. "Why aren't you saying anything?" He frowned, then seemed to relax. "Not enough? No problem. Here's a blank one. Write down whatever you want. I can satisfy you." His smug smile was so annoying. I took the $1 million check. The truth is, I was jealous of him back then. He took my mom away, and then he took Clara. Seriously, life isn't fair. That evening, I was headed home after closing up the shop. Clara quietly followed behind me, dressed all in black, blending into the night. She looked sad and pitiful. I was munching on a pastry I'd bought from a street vendor while strolling home under the long, leafy path. The moonlight cast silvery glows everywhere. The houses lining the long street were all lit up. Where there's light, there's someone waiting. "Leo, what are you thinking about?" Clara asked softly, hope shining in her eyes. I didn't answer, just kept walking. My road in life might just be a lonely one, with parents who didn't care, who both cheated, got divorced, and left me with money but no love. Clara, like this, was boring to me. She was always trying to make me remember the past, thinking that if I remembered, we might have a chance. They say you can't wake someone who's pretending to sleep. As smart as Clara is, couldn't she guess that she's just pretending? One day she came into the shop with a lunchbox, smiling as she opened it. "Look, these are your favorite marinated chicken feet. Every time I wasn't on a business trip, you'd buy a big bag for us to snack on while watching shows. I learned a little. Try them and see if they taste right." Her hands were covered with bandages, looking awful. I sighed. "Stop wasting your time on me. I'm pretty content with my life alone." Clara hugged me tightly, sensing that I really didn't want her there. "But Leo, I don't want to lose you. During the time you weren't around, I didn't even know how I got through it. When we were shooting, you always liked to talk near me. You'd come home with me, cook for me, and smile at me. But then you left, and it's like a piece of me was missing. It hurts. It hurts so much. I can't be without you, Leo. Please, let's go home." You used to say, Leo should like Clara for a long, long time. I felt the wetness on my shoulder, but my heart didn't stir. My mind wandered back to that time when I was 18, on Wu Tai Shan, heavy with snow. Maybe back then, the me of before couldn't believe just how much I liked her, enough to lose myself completely. Yet now, I felt nothing, not even sadness or hate. Outside, the leaves of the big tree fell with the wind. The seasons were changing. Autumn was here. The leaves were following nature's rule, turning yellow and falling. In this train ride of life, some people teach you things, but they're just passengers. When their stop comes, they have to leave. I gently patted her back, just like she had comforted me when I lost my grandparents at 17. "Clara," I said softly, "we both need to move forward." Before she left, red-eyed and carrying her suitcase, she came to the shop one last time. She looked so thin, she asked, "Leo, will you be here forever?" I replied, "No." A tear slipped from her eye, and her grip on the suitcase handle turned white. She stood there for a long time. "When the time comes, where will she look for me? Will she even be able to find me?" Her voice was hoarse and filled with despair. "So, I lost you on that rainy night." I didn't see her off that day. I just watched the planes fly overhead, guessing which one she might be on, letting go. I've been experiencing it since I was young. My parents' lack of love, my grandparents' passing, Clara's past indifference. Walking that road again tonight, once again, it's just me. The moon is bright, and the path ahead is a bit dark. But it's fine. I'll walk on lightly, without looking back.